Definitely. Oh, well, thank you very much. We notice we need to catch up or make up for 10 minutes. We will speed up just to make sure that at the end of our presentation we're back on track in terms of the time schedule. First of all, very warm welcome here to Berlin, and over the next 30 minutes we would like to kindle your curiosity. So first of all, we asked ourselves, how curious can robots already be? How much curiosity can artificial intelligence have? So we've got 8 requirements which are relevant for you if you deal with AI. And if you think about implementing AI in any way into your marketing channels. So who are we? You already heard about it. I'm Stefan, that's Julia, Team Neusta, based in Hamburg, mainly based in Hamburg, so partly also in Bremen. And Julia Jung and Stefan Niemeyer, we're in charge of tourists and destinations and etc. And actually curiosity keeps us busy day in, day out. And we look at curiosity. Why do people become curious? And then we design the right content, and which is supposed to kindle people's interest and curiosity. And last year we wrote a book, Curiosity Marketing, and we have lots of pointers which brushed upon the topic of AI quite necessarily. And we asked ourselves, I mean, all these topics, Alexa, Siri's, are all these systems already in a position where they can kindle curiosity? And whenever you talk about AI, of course, fear also often comes in. What about you, Julia? Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And I think all of us are kind of caught in that notion, AI is the bane of everybody and it's spoiling everybody or everything. And we took the newspaper headlines over the past 2-3 weeks, analyzed it, and actually we just see negative headlines. AI is taking away jobs, AI is bad. And the question is AI here to stay? And is it killing everything? We double-checked that. Actually, can delete the sound or turn off the sound. And we had a look at that, and we said, actually, AI is not coming, but it's already here to stay, and it's not a bad thing. Alexa, for instance, from Amazon, helps us order a rental car, maybe perhaps to the airport. And we can use Alexa as a hands-free device. We don't need to type anything in. Alexa knows what our preferences are. She orders the right car without us making any effort. So we want to have a flight. We no longer need a person. Lufthansa has Mildred, which is a super chatbot which helps us find the right flight, compare prices, destination management. And here AI is already here to stay and really makes our life easier. Maybe you heard about it before. You want to book a hotel, you don't read about the hotel description. Did you know that most hotel reviews are no longer written by robots, by human beings, but rather text robots? So basically, this is already a point where AI is here to stay. And during the check-in, for instance, you're welcomed by a robot, perhaps. Small robot. So actually it's not a bane, it's not a horror story, but rather it goes to show that AI is here and it's here to stay. So actually we're already in the middle of it. If you have a look at the individual systems, then it's very much part of our everyday life. We spoke to about Alexa last year, and when it's about content, it's about triggering transactions. When you book something, the systems are fairly mature. But that begs the following question: does AI indeed replace human beings when it's about curiosity and kindling curiosity? And we had a look at this available marketing systems that are available on the market. We came up with a map of AI and had a look of where systems are which have AI or generate AI. And let me preface this. There's hardly any area in the digital marketing where I'm not supported by a plethora of systems, low-cost systems, which I can deploy anywhere, where I can upload content and which then use that content in an automated way. That's so exciting. And what's also very interesting is there are new two factors in order to really use the systems to kindle curiosity. So first of all, we need to make sure that we get meaningful information from the systems. And the second precondition is part of the second wave of digitization, to use the word of the head of the Institute for AI, German Institute for AI. Second point is that these robots start to recognize our mood, our facial expression. On the basis of that information, they then fine-tune the information which they output, just to make sure that they're really in sync with our mindset, with our mood. And actually, we can break this down into 4 different stages. AI is a game changer in terms of marketing. Big question is not, is AI evil, but the big question is AI changing the way in which we're doing marketing? And the answer to that is yes, it does. So first of all, don't allow your marketing to become more divorced from the guest. Always keep tabs on the relationship. First of all, curiosity is extremely human. This is what we investigate in our book. It's very emotional. With our technology, with the systems, we always try to move to the hearts and minds of people. But is that still feasible? That's the big question. We started with simple systems which make communication easier and expedited communication. And I mean, this is where we lost gestures, etc. So here we're already partly removed from the guest in terms of our marketing tools. We had to compensate for that. Now we've got the topic of big data. Everybody collects data. Now, on the one hand, human beings are concerned and they think it's a big brother world where data are being collected. But the thing is, as marketing guys, we need to ask ourselves, what do we do with the data? What do we do with it for marketing purposes in order to create passion and create a curiosity? And the next evolutionary stage of AI is the generative intelligence. So we create new realities. And I just saw it mentioned it a minute ago. We have robot-generated texts. It's hardly possible to say whether this text or language was written by a robot or by a human being. So actually this is making us drift away from our guest, and there's a method to that. And now we've got the creative intelligence. If you know Alexa at home, then you know that we strike up a relationship. So actually the AI strikes up a relationship with the guest, but where are we as marketing guys? Do we still get a pie and a piece of the cake, or is it already part of the AI's job, which creates that relationship? And this is the big question we need to ask ourselves. What is the kind of role that we want to play in that love relationship with our guest? And we've got different ways in which we can achieve that. Maybe you can say, okay, wonderful systems will leave the terrain to AI. We won't meddle with that. We'll just make the data available. Event data, routes, all the structured data. So we are only the slave who feeds the machine with data. This is one approach, of course. And of course, it begs a problem. Structured data is not empathic data. And maybe you know this, okay, where you say, okay, I've got AI, I've got Alexa, I've got an event calendar at Alexa. And maybe you will ask Alexa what's going on in Berlin, and Alexa will reel off a list of 323 events. But that's not sexy. That's not nice. So let's leave that and approach for a minute. And there's a second approach. Okay, we enter the arena again. We are the movers and shakers, and we shape the new era. We are the owners of the AI. We are the creators of all of this. What we did now is say, okay, this is a watershed decision which you need to take in marketing, in the marketing department. But if you decide for the approach where you say, I'm not just a slave feeding the machine with the data, I want to do more, then we had a look at the 8 requirements with regard to curiosity. And is that in line with regard to the existing capabilities of AI? And the second question which we asked ourselves, are there any providers, especially other providers in Germany, who have what it takes and do research in this area? And let's have a look at that hit list. First of all, Julia pointed out quite rightly, whenever you talk about curiosity, you can only create curiosity if you've got a kind of bond with the person who's telling you something. If you don't have any bond, you won't be curious with regard to what they have to tell you. So without without bonding, AI can't create that link or that curiosity, and the AI needs to prepare the ground in order to make sure that I'm prepared to accept the information. The reason why the big ones like Apple and Amazon are investing so much into bonding is precisely that. Did you ask yourself what Siri looks like, what Alexa looks like, what Fontana looks like, what their faces are? And this is exactly the question which Presaya, Aix-la-Chapelle-based company, asked themselves last year. And they come up with the following study. When you analyze Siri, when you analyze the language, what do people think Siri looks like? Because it's a deliberate choice, and they did a search together with a profiler and analyzed the image in people's mind. Is it more the bossy person? Is it more the low-profile person? Or do they think Siri is not really friendly? And they came to the conclusion that there's massive differences in terms of how the systems speak to them and how they probably look, what they probably look like. And this is exactly the bond which is created. Why some people say, no, I don't like Siri. Forget about Siri. I think she's so unfriendly. And other people love Siri. And they think she's the most friendly person in the world. And of course, it was a very psychological study, and they did like psychological interviews with people who used Amazon's Alexa, and people said, actually, talking to Alexa kind of boosts my ego. Okay, I'm a bit concerned about losing control, but it does something to me. And this is why these systems invest so much into bonding, because they know that bonding is the conditio sine qua non for curiosity. Now we move on straight away to the heart of curiosity. How do you kindle curiosity, and what do you need in terms of content? Exactly. The must-haves for curiosity. Of course, it depends from person to person. It's very individual, subjective. But one common denominator is controversy. Like, if unless it's new, novel, and complex to a certain extent, we won't be able to create curiosity. Now, what's so exciting for us, for the AI which we feed, is the following. This information needs to be new, controversial, and novel, and it needs to in order to do that, it needs to understand the passions and the longings of our guests. And based on that information, it can then come up with the right information. Otherwise, it's just a small, stupid text robot which reels off 323 events in Berlin. I mean, Curie, for instance, Bosch, a small empathetic robot by Bosch, and Curie responds to me stroking it, and within the framework of its robot-like possibilities, it responds to me. It doesn't have a wide gamut of repertoire of responses, but it does respond, and that's so exciting. What's the next step? What's the next step after having responded? And now I'm curious, and the next wonderful example is Presaya from Aix-la-Chapelle. I mean, they analyze our voice, our language based on lots of different parameters. Here you see a snapshot, for instance, the scope of our voice, the waves, etc. And based on our speed, this system understands what kind of mode we are in, what kind of mood we are in. Like, it's reading behind the lines, subcutaneous information, so you can just throw an email. It's like sending an email where you actually double check whether is that really the way it's intended, or is there something written between the lines. And that begs the question, what else can they do with that? What is the inherent potential? And of course, we've got systems which are not thousands of pounds, but Julia just said it. We've got small tools included which you can use yourself for the website or for your own sound or language or tonality of the voice. And the biggest mistake which you can make if you trigger curiosity, or when you try to trigger curiosity, is that you just throw new things at them. Because if you throw too many new things at them, curiosity turns into fear. And this is exactly what we're witnessing with AI. People are scared because it's too much new information. But that means that new information always needs to be mixed with familiar information. When you launch a campaign, if you want to present something new, always make sure that you include 30 or 40% of trusted, of known knowledge, so people can identify with that information. Because for the systems, it's a very tall order, because the system doesn't know what the prior information of the user is. And one provider who tries to implement that and gauge the water is AX Semantics. They also do content automation. They do precisely the robot text, and they have an interesting tool which tracks the reading performance of the user. The system always knows which information the user has already read, and then the text or the language is changed dynamically in order to mix the prior knowledge with the new knowledge, which I want to communicate for marketing purposes right now in that specific moment. That makes sure that we're not overwhelmed by new information. And what about the structure of the content? Okay, maybe you ask yourselves, what about the structure? Of course, we need structure, and we've got scientific evidence which points to the fact that there are four basic types of curiosity. What's very important when you prepare content, always bear this structure in mind and be very aware of the fact what kind of content is supposed to create which kind of curiosity. So we have four different types of curiosity. AI, of course, needs to be able to deliver that job. But first of all, you need to be aware of these four different types of curiosity in order to feed the robot accordingly. The most banal type of curiosity, which is the lowest ranking curiosity, is like Facebook or snack curiosity. It's like Facebook, you open it briefly, it's just sound bites, it's just snapshots, etc. It's what we call snack curiosity. But it's very banal, but still it needs to be satisfied. And then the next highest level is knowledge, the curiosity for knowledge. Maybe I want to find out some information about a new location, I want to travel there, I want to get in-depth information, I want to know about the customs of the country, I want to be up to date. So that's already the next tier of curiosity, and I need to structure my content. The content needs to be more sober, more crunchy and meaningful. And the third very exciting type of curiosity is the curiosity for the reason of shame. The curiosity of shame, how is it supposed to be created? Well, it's because other people have information which I don't have, so I feel ashamed. So this is a very strong trigger. I want to make sure that I'm on the same level as my peers. So when can we get moments where a hotel guest says, well, I don't know that, and this is new information, and and how can we provide the content to them in the fastest way? And then the highest level of curiosity is passionate curiosity. This is people who really love a topic, and they want to be able to experience through all channels, multimedia information. And the AI needs to be capable of identifying that highest level of curiosity and sending the right content at the right point in time. We brought along an example, and that is a small chatbot. The chatbot was initially designed for psychologists, so if I need psychological advice, and it's called Wobot. And if you want to play, I can just recommend it to you if you want to play around with chatbots, because it's very intelligent and exactly plays the content based on those four rules of the structure of curiosity. It's like snack curiosity, shame curiosity. It always responds extremely well to exactly these four different kinds of content, which ideally you should create in order to trigger to the four types of curiosity. So once I've clustered my content, let's drill deeper. What happens if I'm really curious? What's the worst mistake you can make in marketing is that you kind of put people in awe. So when you're awestruck, you're kind of rigid, and you don't really respond. The only thing that really makes people double-check information is when you speak to the personal goals, and that's very demanding for artificial intelligence because, first of all, the AI needs to second-guess the personal objective. What is the point which I want to achieve with the information I'm querying right now? Let me give you a banal example. Julia, for instance. No, let's give her a virtual reality goggle and say, okay, well, Julia, have a look at these goggles, and it's extremely cool, and look at that boring landscape. And Julia won't be overly impressed. But if I know what her real motivation, her real rationale is, then it's completely different. Julia loves whales and loves sea, loves the ocean. Why not show her the ocean and whales? And at that point, we really have a foot in the door. And now the big rationale might be she wants to find out where these whales are and where I can find them. So I need to use this in order to get a foot in the door. And there's a Berlin-based provider who tries to really up the ante here, automation and text automation and Retresco. Quite nicely. The colleagues are over there. I mean, that's a shameless plug, but anyway, they try to do exactly that. They try to analyze what people are doing, what human beings are doing, what their motivations are, and how you can inspire that sense of surprise, that sense of wonder. So this is the big curiosity finale. So first of all, with the whales, it really worked. I was very curious. And the sixth type, in terms of how I can really enter that spiraling curiosity, is the following. So when am I most receptive? If you ask yourself that question, then you probably come to the conclusion, well, just briefly before the point where curiosity will be satisfied. And that point, when that eager anticipation is highest, your curiosity will be highest. And the AI needs to be able to identify these few milliseconds where I'm just on the verge of seeing a light bulb, where your curiosity is on the verge of being satisfied. This is exactly where you need to place your pitch. For instance, maybe you know these personality tests. Are you this or are you that? So you click on something and you want to find out what the verdict is, what the assessment is. And that load button where you spend a few milliseconds waiting and you kind of you can't wait to see what's going to happen. And the AI, if it recognizes what I was doing on the website beforehand, recognizes what kind of content I should show to my guests, then that is exactly the right point. And this is the point where we are psychologically proven most receptive. I think this is something you should bear in mind when you trigger curiosity. Unfortunately, we didn't come across any provider who already delivers this. I mean, sending content at precisely that exact timing. And the last stage, which is also very important, we didn't find a provider yet, but we wanted to share it. So what happens once my curiosity is satisfied? And the biggest danger in marketing is that sooner or later our guests become blasé. So they already done that, seen it, got the T-shirts. Just think about the gadgets which you've got sitting around at home, and you say, okay, at one point I thought it was funny, but I don't fancy it anymore. But you shouldn't allow your guests to become accustomed to that. So AI needs to know that you need to rekindle curiosity again and again. So you should never always get all the information in order to fully satisfy your curiosity. There always needs to be a remainder of unsatisfied curiosity. And one provider who has been implementing that principle very nicely for the past couple of weeks is Booking.com. Maybe you know it. If you book a room, then of the past 2-3 weeks, I've been receiving an email. Okay, Stefan, I booked a room in Hamburg, and then we receive an email. Stefan, you've got a discount code For all sites in Hamburg, you get 15%. So first, they satisfied my curiosity with regard to the hotel room, and then they try to rekindle the curiosity by saying, well, don't you want to be able to visit the sites, etc.? And how cool would it be if the system really knew what kind of events would be interesting from, Booking.com already knows that I spend every weekend in Hamburg, so I don't need to go and see the basic sites. But if the system knows Stefan is into whales or whatever, then and Hamburg has a whale exhibition, then I'm extremely receptive. I don't get accustomed to the regular landmarks or the typical sites, etc. So the customer journey, especially in tourism, is super, but also tricky, isn't it, Julia? Yes, definitely. It is tricky. Customer journey, we all know the moments of truth, when we need to pitch our content, what are the touch points with the guest. So we've done our homework. But anyway, in our research, in our day-to-day work, we also notice it's not enough in order to really speak to the hearts and minds of people and really trigger their curiosity, because there's something missing in the equation. And what's missing is the following. We, or the AI, needs to be able to understand the bond to us as a brand and address that bond and take action based on that bond. For instance, know what the guest wants to do at which point in time with us, but especially based on the nature of our relationship. Let's recap. The old customer journey was great, but it's not good enough. Go the extra mile if you really want to kindle people's curiosity and really speak to people's hearts and minds. And last but not least, let me share something we work with. Okay, customer journey is nice, don't get me wrong, but customer's journey is not good enough in order to structure the content and bring the content into the systems. Because the final question you need to ask yourselves when you talk about the systems, do you have content in order to satisfy any kind of relationship which you may have with your guest? We've got 6 different types of relationships, which we already saw, or phases of relationships. So the worst stage is rejection. Okay, never ever will I go to your destination, so I need content which speaks exactly to that type of person. Or people who have reservations with regard to the company. Okay, I'll come to your destination, but I don't want to have anything to do with you because I just read bad news. Or uncertainty. Uncertain travelers is also another type of relationship. Okay, I'd like to book you, but I'm still uncertain. I don't dare to book you. Or these are the 3 negative ones, and I've got 3 positive ones, like people who are ready. Okay, I'll try it. I don't know whether I'll become a regular customer. And that customer needs to be addressed in a different way than convinced regular customers. People who say, okay, I'm a regular customer, but I don't want to become involved in your content. And this is the top category, people who are regular customers and who also want to be, please bear with me for using that term, influencers, people who say, I love you and I also want to shape your content. These are 6 different levels of relationships, and you need to address them with different contents. And if I take these levels and then combine them with another level, namely activity, AI systems are always shaped by activities, and the lowest level of activity is consuming. You know that. After a long day at the trade show, you go back to the hotel room, you lie down on the settee, and you just consume information. You put the telly on and don't really listen. Or that's a completely different level of activity than people who search, who say, I'm active, I want to see something. And then you've got the decision makers, people who are splurging money. And then people who talk about on-site services. They want to experience something. They say, I'm on-site, and in an ideal world, I want to be able to shape my own content where, again, I have a different type of activity. And the final stage is a stage which is exactly missing in the customer journey. And that is unfortunately, is absent. People tend to forget a good holiday, tend to forget a good provider, etc. And I need to respond to that. Now I take the relationship level, the activity level, and turn it into a matrix. When I turn it into a matrix, I have 4 different arenas, 2 positive, 2 negative ones. And based on these 4 arenas, I can structure my content and I can tell people, okay, in these 4 arenas, you should cater to the activities in a different way just to create people's curiosity. So this is the content arena, in which you can move, the content matrix, in which you can move and pitch entire campaigns and content. And last but not least, we came up with an example which is also showcased here at the trade show, based on, presented by Huber Meda, or rather more, they are marketing the site Brandenburg. They've got personalized events with facial recognition. For instance, I go somewhere and I want to have exactly the right events which are right for me, but I don't know what is the right event for me. So I turn the system on. It's got an image scanner, and the system understands whether I'm happy or sad, and actually then sends me events which are exactly in tune, in sync with my mood, and sends me events which are in line with the mood in which I want to experience Brandenburg. And here the precondition is that you have the system in place in order to do the image recognition. Now, of course, it's never going to be perfect, but at least it's pointing into the right direction. It's no longer where I'm just the slave feeding the system with data, but I provide the system with meaningful data. I create and shape the data. Now that brings us back to the crux of our presentation. Can AI systems kindle curiosity or not? Well, hopefully over the past 30 minutes we've been able to convince you that this is possible indeed, but only when we understand the rules of curiosity can we actually proactively feed the AI system and not leave it to the AI systems to do something with the data. So we need to make sure that we feed the AI systems with the right content. Only if we have the right content can we actually speak to people's hearts and minds and trigger their curiosity. Anyway, you made it. You survived our presentation. Anyway, a brief pointer. If you want to find out more about this information, we are going to upload it to our website, neugiermarketing.de. You can download our presentation. And if you want to find out more about our book, even after the publication of the book, we will continue to talk about that topic. We've got a podcast, we've got a blog. Subscribe to us. We really look forward to you. And you can read up on this on neugiermarketing.de. And all that leaves us to do is wish you a wonderful ITB. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to pick our brains. Just